phones, Babylons can't crack the code.
What it do, YouTube? B Kelly back again with another banger video. Today's video, y'all, I will be talking about what happened to the past 10 #1 ranked receivers in the nation coming out of high school from 2011 to 2020. Now, onto the video. The #1 receiver coming out of the 2011 recruiting class, according to 24/7 Sports Composite Rankings, was George Farmer, who was ranked as the #8 recruit in the nation and committed to USC. George Farmer in his career at USC did not pan out the way that most people thought it would, but he was very injury-riddled during his time at USC. He really only played his true freshman season that was not injured at all, where he appeared in 4 games, and then going into the 2012 season, he got a brown recluse spider bite that actually caused him to miss a lot of the preseason camp, and he only was used sparingly in his sophomore season. And then right before his true junior season, he tore his ACL and MCL right before the season started, and his final season, his redshirt junior season at USC, where he saw his most success, he had 25 receptions for 314 yards and 4 touchdowns. He would end up declaring for the 2015 NFL Draft after this season. Due to not having the most playing time at USC due to injury issues and just not being used the most when he was healthy, he would end up going undrafted in the 2015 NFL Draft. Farmer would then be picked up by the Dallas Cowboys as an undrafted free agent, but would be released right before preseason actually started. Then he was picked up by the Seattle Seahawks, where he was on their practice squad until May 9th, 2017, and for the Seahawks he played cornerback and running back. Since being released by the Seattle Seahawks, George Farmer has not played a single down of NFL football since then. Coming out of the 2012 recruiting class, the #1 receiver in the nation was also the #1 player in the nation as well, and that was Green Beckham, who was committed to Mizzou. Green Beckham in his freshman season at Mizzou in the 2012 college football season would appear in 11 games. He would rack up 395 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns for that season. In 2013, he had his breakout season and his last season in college football actually playing a single game, where in 2013, he played in 14 games, had 883 receiving yards, and 12 total receiving touchdowns. But shortly after the 2013 college football season, he would be dismissed from Mizzou's football team due to legal troubles, and then he would transfer to the University of Oklahoma, where he was not allowed to play a game due to transferring, and he had to sit out a whole year, in which he did, and he was just on scout team for Oklahoma in the 2014 college football season. After the 2014 college football season, Green Beckham would not return to Oklahoma, and he would declare for the 2015 NFL Draft instead. Despite not playing in a single game in the 2014 college football season, Green Beckham in the 2015 NFL Draft would still be selected very early in the 2nd round and the 40th overall pick by the Tennessee Titans. Green Beckham's NFL career never met expectations, and he was pretty disappointing to say the least. Now, Green Beckham in 2 seasons in the NFL, the only 2 seasons that he played in, he spent 1 season in Tennessee and 1 season with the Eagles. Now, when I tell you his stats, you may be thinking, that's not horrible for a guy who never really started and only played 2 seasons in the NFL. And it really isn't. I mean, in 2 seasons in the NFL, primarily not starting at all, he had 941 receiving yards, averaging almost 14 yards per reception, and 6 touchdowns through the air. But the ugly part about his game was his catching, and he's a wide receiver. He's supposed to catch the balls. He's a wide receiver. That's what they do. They catch the ball, and he only caught 48% of the balls that were thrown his way. After he was released by the Philadelphia Eagles in the 2017 NFL offseason, he did have some interest by some other teams in the NFL, but he ultimately never signed with another team again, primarily due to legal troubles that he had acquired after he got released from the Philadelphia Eagles. In the 2013 recruiting class, the #1 receiver in the nation was Laquon Treadwell, who was committed to Ole Miss. Laquon Treadwell at Ole Miss had a pretty dang good career. In 3 seasons at Ole Miss, he had 2,393 receiving yards, averaging almost 12 yards per reception, and 21 total touchdowns in only 3 seasons. Now, his best season was his last season, his true junior season, as in 13 games he had 1,153 yards and 11 touchdowns through the air. After having a breakout junior season, Laquon Treadwell would decide to forgo his final year of college football eligibility and declare his name for the 2016 NFL Draft. In the 2016 NFL Draft, Laquon Treadwell was taken with the 23rd overall pick in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings. Being drafted in the first round by the Minnesota Vikings, Laquon Treadwell had a lot of expectations, and he was expected to be the future star receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, or at least that's what the Vikings thought. Laquon Treadwell's NFL career has not gone out the way that many people thought it would. He's really been struggling to start in a lot of games in these past few seasons. So far in the 5 seasons he's played in, 4 with the Minnesota Vikings, and 1 in the 2020 NFL season with the Atlanta Falcons. He's only started in 16 of the 58 career games he's played in, and he only has 750 career receiving yards and 4 career receiving touchdowns. In the 2014 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was the number 10 overall recruit in the nation as well, and that was Speedy Noyle, who was committed to Texas A&M. Speedy Noyle and his career in college at Texas A&M definitely did not go the way that many people thought it would. Now, Speedy Noyle had a pretty dang good freshman season where he had 583 receiving yards and 5 touchdowns. And in the kick return game, this guy was deadly as he had 645 total yards from kick returns and averaged 24 yards per kick return that he had that 2014 season. But every year that Speedy Noyle played at Texas A&M, his production went down each season. By the time he was done at Texas A&M, the 3 seasons he was there, he only had 1,134 yards and 9 touchdowns. His biggest season was his freshman season at Texas A&M. All the other seasons were not really anything special, and he played in less games than he did in his freshman season. Now, Speedy Noyle never made it to the NFL. The main thing that kept him away from an NFL contract was primarily his legal troubles that he had, primarily just following him basically throughout his whole career. He did have some training camp opportunities, but legal troubles were the main reason why his career ended so quickly. The number 1 receiver in the 2015 recruiting class was Calvin Ridley, who was committed to Alabama. In the 3 seasons that Calvin Ridley spent at Alabama, he was a main point in their receiving attack every season. In his career, he had 2,781 yards, averaging 12.4 yards per reception and 19 total touchdowns through the air in only 3 seasons. He decided to forgo his final year of college eligibility at Alabama and declare his name for the 2018 NFL Draft, where he was drafted in the first round, 26th overall by the Atlanta Falcons. In the 3 seasons that Calvin Ridley has spent in Atlanta so far, he has consistently gotten better in almost every receiver category, and he has constantly been a vocal point of the Atlanta Falcons passing attack pretty much his entire career. In the 3 seasons he's spent in Atlanta so far, he's had 3,061 receiving yards, averaging almost 14 yards per reception, and 26 touchdowns through the air in only 3 seasons. And honestly, I think he's one of the more underrated NFL receivers in the league. In the 2016 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was Demetrius Robertson out of Savannah, Georgia, and he was committed to Cal. Demetrius Robertson started his career off at Cal very fast. In his first season at Cal, in his true freshman season in 2016, he had 767 receiving yards and 7 touchdowns. But in 2017, he would end up getting hurt after 2 games and missing the rest of the season, then ultimately transferring to Georgia after that season. Demetrius Robertson's career at Georgia has not been the same way as the flashes we saw at Cal in his true freshman season. So far in 3 seasons at Georgia he has recorded 443 receiving yards, averaging almost 11 yards per reception, and 3 touchdowns through the air. And he has come back for a 2021 free eligibility season, but he's currently in a bunch of trouble for removing a parking boot off of his car, and it's very unknown what's going to happen next. In the 2017 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was ranked as the number 12 player in the nation for that recruiting class as well, and that was Donovan Peoples-Jones, who was committed to Michigan. Donovan Peoples-Jones at Michigan, for the 3 seasons he was there, he would rack up 1,327 receiving yards, averaging almost 13 yards per reception, and 14 total touchdowns through the air. He had the option of coming back for another year of eligibility for the 2020 college football season. Instead, he would declare his name for the 2020 NFL Draft. Donovan Peoples-Jones would end up being drafted in the 2020 NFL Draft by the Browns in the 6th round. Now, Donovan Peoples-Jones has primarily been a backup in his rookie season, but he still put up decent numbers when he was playing a bit as well. In his rookie season, he put up 14 receptions for 304 yards, averaging 22 yards per reception and 2 touchdowns. In the 2018 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was also the number 8 overall recruit as well, and that was Justin Shorter, who was committed to Penn State. Justin Shorter at Penn State would appear in 12 games in his whole career in 2 seasons in 2018 and 2019, where he had a total of 157 receiving yards for 10.5 yards per reception and 0 touchdowns, before ultimately transferring to Florida after the 2019 college football season. In the 2020 college football season at Florida, Justin Shorter played in every game, and he recorded 25 receptions for 268 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. But going into the 2021 college football season, Justin Shorter is expected to be one of the main receivers in the passing attack for Florida and to be one of the main guys on that offense as well. In the 2019 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was also the number 4 overall recruit as well, and that was Jaden Hazelwood, who was committed to Oklahoma. In Jaden Hazelwood's true freshman season at Oklahoma in the 2019 college football season, he appeared in 10 games, had 19 receptions for 272 yards, averaging 14 yards per reception and 1 touchdown, and he showed a lot of flashes to be that guy for OU in the future as the future star receiver, following people like CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown, and the list goes on. But going into the 2020 college football season, unfortunately, during the lockdown that everyone had to go through, he unfortunately tore his ACL, which would make him miss a good part of the 2020 college football season. He would come back earlier than expected, but he would only appear in 3 games, and he would play a minimal role in those games, as he had 4 receptions for 65 yards, averaging 16 yards per reception and 0 touchdowns. Coming out of the 2020 recruiting class, the number 1 receiver in the nation was also the number 3 overall recruit as well, and that was Julian Fleming, that was committed to Ohio State. In Julian Fleming's true freshman season at Ohio State in the 2020 college football season, he would only appear in 4 games, racking up 7 receptions for 74 yards and 0 touchdowns. But he is expected to have a much bigger role in the 2021 college football season. Now that I'm at the end of the video, I would like to hear y'all's thoughts on what you guys thought about the video and who surprised y'all the most. Remember to drop down video suggestions for future videos, and remember, before you head out, remember to smash that like button, turn on them post notifications, and subscribe for more videos. B. Kelly, out.